It was a cold, rainy evening in New York City. The streets were crowded, headlights reflecting off the wet asphalt, and people rushed home, trying to escape the storm. Daniel, a poor single father, gripped the steering wheel of his old, worn-out taxi. His eyes were heavy from exhaustion, but he couldn't afford to stop working. Every extra dollar mattered. His young daughter, Lily, was waiting at home, and he needed to make sure she had food on the table. Life hadn't been easy for Daniel. Ever since his wife passed away, he had been both a father and a mother to Lily. He worked long hours, often skipping meals just to save money. Despite everything, he never complained. Lily's smile was the only thing that kept him going. As Daniel drove through a quieter part of the city, something unusual caught his attention. A sleek, expensive car was crashed against a lamppost on the side of the road. The hazard lights blinked weakly in the rain. Most drivers passed by without stopping, assuming someone else would handle it. But Daniel felt a sudden sense of urgency. He pulled over immediately. Running through the rain, he reached the car and looked inside. A well-dressed woman was slumped over the steering wheel, unconscious. Her face was pale, and there was a small cut on her forehead. Panic surged through Daniel, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he called, gently shaking her shoulder. There was no response. Without wasting another second, Daniel opened the car door and carefully helped her out. She was heavier than he expected, and the rain made everything more difficult. Still, he didn't hesitate. He carried her to his taxi, his clothes soaking through completely. His mind raced. What if it's too late? What if I can't save her? But he pushed those thoughts aside and sped toward the nearest hospital. Traffic was terrible, and the rain made visibility worse, but Daniel drove with determination. This woman's life depended on him. When they finally reached the hospital, Daniel jumped out and shouted for help. Nurses rushed over with a stretcher, quickly taking the woman inside. Doctors immediately began treating her. One of the nurses turned to Daniel. "You brought her just in time." A little later, and it could have been much worse. Daniel let out a long breath, relief washing over him. He nodded silently, too tired to speak. As he stood there, dripping wet and shivering, reality slowly returned. His shift was ruined, he had lost hours of income, and Lily was still waiting at home. He checked his old phone, several missed calls from his daughter. Guilt filled his heart. Without asking for recognition or even leaving his name, Daniel quietly walked out of the hospital. No one stopped him. No one knew who he was. He got back into his taxi, the engine coughing before starting again. As he drove home through the rain, he wondered if the woman would survive. But deep down, he knew he had done the right thing. What Daniel didn't know was that this single act of kindness would soon change his life forever. 2 weeks passed, and life returned to its usual struggle for Daniel. Every day was the same, long hours driving his taxi, little sleep, and constant worry about bills. Yet, despite everything, he never forgot the night he saved the mysterious woman. Sometimes, while waiting for passengers, he wondered if she had survived. But with no name and no connection, he assumed he would never know. One quiet afternoon, Daniel received an unexpected call. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello," he answered cautiously. "Is this Daniel?" A calm voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "This is City Hospital. We need you to come in as soon as possible." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, fear gripped him. Had something gone wrong? Was it about the woman? Or worse, was something wrong with Lily? "I'll be there," he said quickly, ending the call. He drove to the hospital with a mix of anxiety and confusion. His mind was racing with questions, but none had answers. When he arrived, a nurse greeted him and led him down a quiet hallway. Everything felt strangely serious. They stopped outside a private room. "Please go in," the nurse said with a gentle smile. Daniel hesitated for a second before opening the door. Inside, the woman he had saved sat upright on the bed. She looked much healthier now, her face no longer pale. Her arm was still bandaged, but her eyes were bright and full of life. The moment she saw Daniel, she froze. "It's you," she whispered. Daniel stepped inside, unsure of what to say. You're okay." Tears filled her eyes. "I've been searching for you everywhere. The doctors told me a man brought me in, but you disappeared before anyone could even ask your name." Daniel looked down, slightly embarrassed. "I just did what anyone would do." She shook her head firmly. "No, not everyone would stop in the middle of a storm. Not everyone would risk their time and livelihood for a stranger. She paused, her voice softening. You saved my life. Daniel didn't respond. He wasn't used to gratitude like this. The woman took a deep breath. My name is Victoria. I own several companies here in the city. She gave a small, humble smile. People call me a millionaire, but that night, none of that mattered. Without you, I wouldn't be here. Daniel's eyes widened slightly, but he stayed quiet. I have no close family, Victoria continued. And in these past 2 weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about the man who saved me and walked away without asking for anything in return. She looked at him sincerely. People like you are rare. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I didn't do it for a reward. I know, she said gently. And that's exactly why you deserve one. She motioned toward a folder on the table. I did some searching. I learned about your situation, your daughter, your struggles. Daniel's expression changed. He wasn't expecting that. I want to help you, Victoria said. Not as charity, but as gratitude. A stable job in one of my companies, a proper home for you and your daughter, and full support for her education. Daniel was speechless. His mind couldn't process what he was hearing. I'm not trying to change who you are, she added softly. I just want to change your circumstances, the way you changed mine. For a long moment, Daniel stood there, overwhelmed. 2 weeks ago, he had simply followed his heart. Today, that single act of kindness had returned to him in a way he never imagined possible. Daniel stood in the hospital room, still trying to process everything Victoria had just said. His mind felt overwhelmed. Just 2 weeks ago, he had been worrying about how to afford groceries, and now, someone was offering to change his entire life. I don't know what to say, Daniel finally spoke, his voice low and uncertain. Victoria smiled gently. You don't have to say anything right now. Just think about it. Daniel looked down at his worn shoes, then back at her. I didn't help you expecting anything in return. I was just doing what felt right. And that's exactly why I trust you, Victoria replied. People who act with kindness when no one is watching, they're the ones who deserve real opportunities. Her words stayed with him. That evening, Daniel returned home earlier than usual. Lily ran to the door the moment she heard his footsteps. Papa, she said happily, hugging him tightly. You're early today. Daniel smiled, lifting her into his arms. Yeah, I had something important to do. They sat together at their small kitchen table. The room was simple, with peeling paint and old furniture, but it was filled with warmth. As Lily ate her dinner, Daniel quietly told her about what had happened. Her eyes grew wide with excitement. A big house, and a better school, she asked. Daniel nodded slowly. Yes, but it's a big decision. Our life would change. Lily thought for a moment, then smiled. Papa, you always tell me that good things happen to good people. Maybe this is our good thing. Her innocent words touched his heart. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Victoria's offer. Part of him felt unsure. He had lived a simple life for so long, and stepping into a completely different world felt frightening. But another part of him thought about Lily's future, her dreams, and the opportunities he could never give her on his own. By morning, he had made his decision. The next day, Daniel returned to the hospital. Victoria looked up as he entered the room. There was a quiet hope in her eyes. Daniel took a deep breath. I accept your offer, not just for me, but for my daughter. A warm smile spread across her face. You won't regret this. Within days, everything began to change. Victoria kept her word. Daniel was given a stable position in one of her companies, not out of pity, but because she believed in his honesty and determination. He worked hard, learning quickly and earning the respect of those around him. Soon after, Daniel and Lily moved into a comfortable new home. It wasn't just bigger, it felt safe, peaceful, and full of new beginnings. Lily started attending a good school, where she made friends and began to dream bigger than ever before. Despite all the changes, Daniel remained the same person at heart. He stayed humble, kind, and grateful. One evening, as he tucked Lily into bed in their new home, she looked up at him and said, Papa, everything is better now. Daniel smiled softly. Yes, it is. As he turned off the lights, he realized something important. That rainy night, he had saved a stranger's life. But in return, that single act of kindness had saved his life too. And from that moment on, Daniel promised himself one thing. No matter how much his life changed, he would never stop choosing kindness.